be where we'll get started. Okay, let me go ahead and minimize that. And let me have a drink of this. Sorry. Absolutely. Well, it's either that or I'm doing a shot, and I don't want to do that just yet. So, all right. So, hey, my name is David Phillips. You may or may not know me from either Podcast Detroit or the IT and the D show that's got a little bit of a following here in the Metro Detroit area. Wanted to do a little bit of a sit-down session with a rather important topic and a rather important group of folks here in the area. Just as a note, as of the time of this recording, it is Sunday, December 20th of 2020. It is approximately 4:00 p.m. Just putting that out there because, as we all know, the situations are extremely fluid and information and all kinds of other fun stuff changes. I would love to say day by day, but sometimes it's hour by hour or even more infrequently. For the purposes of letting everybody know who is in the room, so to speak, obviously, COVID being what it is, we are not all in a room together. We are in a Zoom room together. But I'm sitting here with John Skledanowski. If you would go ahead and just give yourself a quick introduction to let people know who you are.
Hi, my name is John Skledanowski. I am the Fraser Education Association president. I am also a math teacher at the high school in Fraser.
We've also got Doreen Monahan with us. And if you would go ahead and do the same.
Hi, I'm Doreen Monahan. I am the Fraser Education Association vice president. I am a first, second grade split teacher currently at Disney Elementary in Fraser. I've been in the district for over 20 years.
Okay. And then also we've got Sarah McCrae with us.
I am Sarah McCrae. I am the union, one of the co-chairs for the Leave Day Committee, and I am a special education teacher at the high school.
And last but not least, we have Carrie Engel with us.
I am Carrie Engel, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Walt Disney Elementary. I have been in the district 16 years, and I have two beautiful girls that are currently going through Fraser schools.
Okay, so I guess let's do a little bit of a level set here. So, again, here we are on, December 20th. We are about 9 months into this wonderful situation of the COVID-19 pandemic that we've been dealing with. Schools in particularly have had a lot of challenges to overcome. So I guess let's start with, how are you guys doing? Like, let's start with a big generic question with, how are you guys doing with all this? And then we'll dive into some specifics.
Why don't we go with the elementary first?
I think that I think that getting us on December 20th was a good thing. Had you had this podcast a week ago, I think the answers might have been a little different. Today, I think we are a few days out of school. I'm looking forward to a 2-week break that we have all earned, probably more this year than ever. And still concerned that for the last 8 days or so, we have been in front of full classrooms, full day, with the smallest, youngest children in the district that sometimes don't understand the importance of mask wearing. And so we have a lot of germs that have been floating around the building that could still show up in any of our lives over the next 2 weeks. We're going to be seeing partial members of our family, obviously the edited COVID version, but for many of us, like those in the front on the front lines everywhere, in the nursing profession, in the fire department, the police department, we have been exposed to a lot more than other people. And I know that we're all just a little bit nervous about what's going to happen over the next couple weeks while we're off, and then again once we come back.
And as far as my perspective, the I would echo that as well. I think coming that it's Sunday, I had a COVID test on Friday. I had a rapid test, and then got the longer results in the last little bit here, and it came out negative, which was a huge relief. Like I said, being that we have 20 to 30 families in our classrooms is very worrisome. I think that as adults, we take good care in our hygiene. I've got something called a shield kerchief. So it's a shield that covers my entire face and then has fabric around, from my ear, and then actually goes around the back of my neck. And I felt my own purchase. I know, like I said, that wasn't something, any kind of PPE that the district provided. It was something that I did above and beyond, for two reasons. One, that I wanted the little ones to be able to see my face first, appropriate sound production for phonemes and things like that, but also as an extra layer of protection, so they do the tap tap like a fishbowl, like, oh, it's plastic. I'm like, yeah, don't touch it, this is my dance space, this is yours. But so I feel like they that having that extra layer of protection, and also, like I said, getting the COVID test, I am feeling much more relieved to see my family. But there's always that concern about when I come back, and what's going to be, what are the conditions going to be, and what's my life going to look like as far as seeing other people when I go back to work. That's a real fear.
Carrie and I both bought our own masks. The district did provide some for us, but we have boxes for replacements for the children. I've gone through a box and a half just with the kids, 100 masks in it. And I have one of the smallest classes in the building right now, but they go through them 2 or 3 a day, some kids, because they cough into them, sneeze into them. They just smell after a while. They they have it in their mouth and they suck on it. They're 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, and Carrie's are 5. And, I went, my daughter's in the medical profession, and she suggested the N95 was a little more durable and better for us. So I had bought the headgear, and actually it's been given to Carrie's the other kindergarten partner, so that her kids could see the face. And I got the N95s and have been wearing those. They fit a little tighter on your face, and so I feel a little safer. But I have a family member with some compromised immune system issues, and so I went the level up so that I could actually possibly see her this Christmas sometime. So,
Sarah?
I would agree. I think that it's really nice to be able to, I feel like we can all just take a breath and thank God that there's not another schedule change happening in the next 2 weeks. I think that that's really nice, but I know for myself and people that I talk to, there's still a lot of anxiety about going back on the 4th, after assuming that not everyone is going to follow the COVID suggestions about who they are around with their families over break. So I know that that's a concern with, people intermingling and then showing up at our front door on the 4th. So I think that there's just, I personally have a lot of anxiety about it. And I'm sure that that's mirrored. So I'm hoping that I can relax for the next 2 weeks, but we'll see.
Well, and you guys raised a couple of good points. And I guess I'll take a step back and I'll edit this back in later up into the front, but just to let you guys, so that you guys know where I'm coming from with all this, because there are skeptics, there are disbelievers, there are anti-vaxxers, there are all of the, I am none of those. I am all about science. In fact, if you guys have, I don't know if you guys have seen them or not, one of my favorite sets of episodes that we've had on our show is with a gentleman by the name of Fred Brown. He is an epidemiologist. He's an infectious disease expert. His credentials are ridiculous. He is one of the guys that actually created the HIV test. He has, got about 12, I believe it's 12 or 15 vaccines under his belt. and his sessions have run as long as 2 hours and 45 minutes on our show, because he gives us the same presentations that he gives to people like Harvard, that he has given to Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. He is actually a part of that and several other transition teams around the state, or excuse me, around the country. And he's a local guy. He's here in Ann Arbor. So there were a couple things that you said in there that jumped out at me. And one of the things that I want to make sure we do a really good job of here is I want to make sure we set the stage for where we are. And where we really are from your perspective, and then maybe take a step back and talk about, okay, and here's how we got here, and this is where we are. So a couple of real quick questions, or maybe they're not, maybe they are in just in my head. Just a couple of things, like, so, you mentioned you just got a COVID test. Is COVID testing covered for you guys? Is this an out-of-pocket expense for you? Is this, or is this all something that's done and handled for you?
Well, according to my understanding and according to what my physician said, it is something that's covered by the federal government. And so, if there's in fact an exposure, and that's what it's written as, and that's what your doctor, can write it as. And so when you go in and you say, okay, I'd like to get a COVID test, this is how it was exposed. He says, okay, well, in order to make sure that, it's covered, we're going to write it under as possible exposure. And so that's exactly what we did. So I know John can probably speak to, and Sarah possibly can speak more to, what the school district is doing as far as, that kind of coverage. But I do know that, the federal government is covering COVID testing 100%. So I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
For you guys, maybe I just want to make sure I call that out specifically, because there are still a lot of people that are out there paying for their own out of pocket. And that's honestly why I wanted to ask the question, because yeah.
But that's why I went through my physician.
Yep.
That's why I went through my physician, because I did want it completely covered. So.
And during the start of the year, we went into negotiations with administration on a letter of understanding on certain topics that would be happening for our daily workload and all the different things that would happen because of COVID. And we had a bullet point of about 15 or 16 things, trying to cover as much things as we can. Now that we're going back to, the elementary has gone full face, and so is the middle and the high school is in January. Now we have to revisit that letter of understanding, because there's more things that are popping up as we go. You do a letter of understanding as a union, because then it becomes contractual, where we have a set of rules about what's going on. So we have to continue to work with administration over that.
And I guess, like, curiosity, is there a are you guys on a schedule? Like, should you be, like, are you supposed to be getting well, actually, if yours was, it sounds like yours was voluntary, Carrie, or I guess maybe John, this is a question for you. Are you trying to work in a regular schedule of, hey, is it weekly, is it bi-weekly, or is it only in case of possible exposure? I mean, like, I guess, how are you approaching that?
Well, it's really tough when you're talking about schools. Different, people were talking about how the pro sports programs, right? The pro sports got to go, or the college sports got to go, and they're testing them all the time. The only thing that we're doing, and only thing that the health department is asking for, is us to do a screener before school, where we're doing Scouts Honor. We're doing Scouts Honor on this, whether we feel good, whether we have, do we feel good? Do we have a temperature in the last 24 hours? Have we been around anyone that has COVID? And we go through this screener, and there's no temperatures taken at all, or there's not even temperatures taken at all. When we have that kind of situation, it's all honor system. So when we don't really have a set standard of when we get tested or if we need to get tested, the only time is if we do have an exposure that they'll ask you to go get tested, but they really can't force anyone to get tested anyways.
Oh, no. Actually, I just meant from your constituents, like from the teacher's perspective. Like, are the teachers trying to Are you trying to set up a schedule where the teachers can get like a I don't know, like a weekly test or whatever, just covered as a part of? Because I mean, let's be real. I mean, Carrie and Dory, we've both have had you guys as teachers. Anybody who's ever had a kid in school is well aware of the ridiculous amount of money that tends to come out of pocket from teachers for basic school supplies and stuff like that. I would just hate to think that something like this is going to get added on top of that. You both mentioned that you went out and bought your own additional PPE, on top of what was out there. So that's why I was asking about the testing. Is are the teachers going to go through a regular testing kind of thing? Because I get your point, and the comparison. When I hear the comparison that you made, that when I hear people make it, it makes me laugh. They're like, "Oh, well, pro sports get to go and college sports get to go." Yeah, they're also spending millions of dollars to keep those athletes in a bubble and test them twice a day and make sure that nothing goes sideways. That's not happening to your middle school soccer player or your high school wide receiver. That's just not going to be happening. So yeah, like I said, that question was just strictly from a teacher perspective, and getting tested.
Right now, we have not had discussions about getting or testing intervals or anything like that. But
Okay.
I think it comes down to because of HIPAA laws and with people in their own personal beliefs, it's kind of hard to force someone to be able to do that. But we would like to get into a situation where we're comfortable knowing who has it and who doesn't. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. Well, and not even necessarily. I mean, yeah. I mean, you shouldn't force people to go do something in most cases, but to know that they had the option available to them if they chose to do so, I'm sure would be of comfort.
Absolutely.
So I'll put it that way. All right. So one of the things to do. So I mean, let's talk about. You mentioned being back. And being back after the start of the school year, where like a lot of people were virtual, and then things got a little wonky and haywire, and now here we are at a break. So I know for many folks, we just went through like an 8-day period that was that had a lot of contentiousness around it, both from like a lot of the parents, as well as some of the teachers' voices got heard, and even some of the kids. Like I've heard from some of the kids that it's okay. Let's be real. Everybody's been home and everybody's been isolating and everybody's been quote unquote safe, or at least safer. Now we're going to go ahead and open schools up for effectively 8 days before the winter break. And from what I understand, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, there have been at least several positive pops that have happened at different schools in the area, which means now, to the point of, are people going to be doing the right thing? Are people going to be doing what they're supposed to be doing? That theoretically those families should now be quarantined all the way through Christmas. So I guess, let's start there and talk about, okay, so how did we get to that 8 days, and what are you looking at over the course of the next 2 weeks for that one full return? What do you typical day over the course of those 8 days, and then what are you hoping to see over this 2-week downtime and break, and then where the fourth, where you think we're going to be then?
Well, the way we got here, you want to go through the whole history of what happened this year?
Actually, you know what? That's a better point. Before we get it, let's start with, because this all blew up back in March, and the very first thing that happened, which I mean, personally, my 2 cents, was one of the smartest things that happened, is that we immediately shut schools down. We're almost immediately shut schools down. To the point that you guys have been making. Kids don't really know how to deal with masks. Let's be honest. A lot of the lower level schools especially tend to be petri dishes. If one kid gets something, it spreads like wildfire. So I guess let's talk about that. Let's talk about, so the schools were shut down back in March, and then there was the entire summer of planning that happened leading up to what was going to be the first day of school. And then I think it was Carrie that mentioned, hey, or maybe it was Sarah that, hey, we're just thankful there's not another schedule change coming. And there were several last minute changes that happened leading up to the first day of school. So I mean, I guess let's walk through that process and how we got to there. And then we'll talk about the last couple months.
Well, I'll start with this one. The first thing that happened is we had committees. One thing that the governor put out is that it had to work in unison with all stakeholders. So we had a bunch of committees. I was on the health and safety committee. Dodie, I remember you were on the curriculum committee. I don't remember, you were too, Carrie. I don't remember where everyone was.
So now are those committees that are working strictly within like the bubble of the district, like they're working like within like the board and that kind of stuff, or are they like, okay,
it's all stakeholders of Fraser. Everyone, it's local control, so every school district had to have a plan.
Okay.
And our plan when we got out of it, and I'll be honest with you, when we were talking about health and safety, I was on the committee that was talking about masks and how we're going to be able to clean the rooms and what we're going to do. And it was like, how can we ever get this done with the amount of people power that we need in order to do it? So what we ended up with is, in our first plan was for small groups in the schools. In elementary, started right away with groups under 10 for half a day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then it evolved from there. Middle school brought in kids, and high school was bringing in special education students that needed more one-on-one time. The plan was doing small groups, but mostly virtual until January 25th. Now, along the way, the curriculum changes, the reshuffling of the decks all happened in those, and I think everyone else can talk about that. But we got to a point, if you took a look at any of the board meetings, you were looking at a group of parents that were extremely upset. They were angry. They wanted their schools to be open. They wanted their kids going to school full time. And it was about 2 or 3. I'm on every one of them.
and you know what? Let's. I want to take a pause right there.
Yeah.
There is nobody on this call or on this in this conversation, I would think, that would disagree with the statement, kids learn best in school.
Absolutely. And I've been on several of the board meetings where I have talked and said exactly that. I mean, I think that's where the disagreement and the friction comes from the teachers and the school district, because our plan was small groups, controlled small groups where rooms could get cleaned, seemed like the best option at the time, in our opinion. We were afraid to be in front of students, but we could space them out, be able to teach them one or face to face. And we know that students learn better in school. Students learn better with a teacher in front of them. Students, their well-being is better in school. We're not disagreeing with any of those. And the unions, the way the union has taken this is, we just want to do it safely. If there's any way we can do it safely. That's the only thing we're asking.
What a novel concept.
Yeah. We don't want to sit home. We don't like teaching. If you ever see how much more work, and I know non-teachers don't understand this, how much more work it is to teach virtually than it is to teach in front of a kid, you would really understand. I mean, it's not anything about workload. It's everything to do with safety. So anyways, the board was getting hit by a group of parents over and over again about they wanted their kids in. All of a sudden, in early November, they called an emergency meeting and they wanted an emergency vote on whether we should bring our kids back full time or not. Now,
remember that meeting. Yep.
That plan was started. The plan was going to end January 25th, and then we would figure something else out. And they voted 7-0 to go full throttle, everyone back by November 30th.
And it seemed, and I don't want to be viewed as casting aspersions. I'm just telling you my opinion. It seemed like that was a foregone conclusion. Like there wasn't really a whole lot of open discussion. There wasn't a whole lot of back and forth that was paid attention to, I guess I should say. I would say there was really no possibility of any other outcome other than what happened in that meeting based on what I saw.
Once you saw the vote, you know what, if I was a board member, I would make sure I know what other board members are thinking and how we're going to vote. It's safety in numbers also, you know, the 7-0, that's what we're going to do. I don't think there was any, you know, we tried to explain to them, we had many people talk at that board meeting, and we were trying to explain to them why we have reservations over it, but they already made up their decision.
Well, and I guess that's the question is, were you, or I mean, like, were any of you brought in to have conversations about that prior to it happening? Or were you about as blindsided as everybody else was?
We were
Well, I
definitely blindsided. We found out the same time the parents did. There was no advance notice for teachers at all.
Well, I think the thing that was really, I guess, confusing and kind of, that jaw-dropping moment was when the week before, and I remember sending several emails. I shouldn't say several, sending a couple emails, because the week before at that board meeting, it seemed like those that were, on the board and in that meeting, they were very supportive of the teachers to say, we want to stay the course. We do want to make sure that our staff is safe and our kids are safe. And, we really feel like that moving forward in this fashion, slow and steady is the way to go. And then less than a week later, or a week later, I should say, it was a totally different tune. And I think it really caught a lot of us by surprise. At least it did for me. Caught me by surprise when it was almost like a totally different room of people, that we were talking with or in front of. And so and again, I think, speaking to what Dodie said about just that, it would have been nice to know prior to the parents knowing. It would have been nice to have some kind of inside information to say, look, this is what's going forward to the parents, so you're prepared.
I don't even know that I would call that inside information. Like, as a person who's not involved in this process, I make certain assumptions. One of those is that our Board of Education has conversations with the teachers. That seems to be what I would think a safe assumption to make, especially on something as big as this is.
Well, I will say though that I did talk to several of them on the phone beforehand.
Okay.
That weekend, I spent quite a bit making phone calls and talking to some of them, but it was more of a conversation. Well, whatever the vote's going to be,
Mm-hmm.
there was a big difference when you see what the vote was.
So change happens, and honestly, I think this is around the time where Anita really started getting heavily involved in all this stuff, if not a little bit before. And then I know I started getting, kind of dragged into this stuff because of the elimination of the hybrid model. That was one of those things or one of those initial plans, to your point, that seemed to make a lot of sense, because it was the ability to have smaller groups, maybe, rotating them in and out, okay, yeah, they come in for a day or two a week, and, but it's still, those smaller class sizes. So what has that change, what did that change then trigger for you guys? Because obviously you had to turn on a dime then, and kind of completely shift gears with what you're thinking you were about to be dealing with in classrooms. So what was next, I guess?
Why don't you explain what the elementary went through, and then we'll do what the high school went through, or was going to go through.
Go ahead, Dodes.
The biggest thing was trying to figure out where you were going to put all of these children. So from September to November 30th, we had the 3 cohorts, so 3 days a week, 3 different groups of kids, no more than 10, and spacing 10 children in a classroom of 900 square feet, not a horrible job. but now you're talking about tripling that in some classrooms, and trying to find the space so that they can do any mitigation at all. They want, they have to face forward, and you wanted to have some sort of spacing. But if you've ever been in one of the classrooms, you know that there is no spacing. Once you start increasing those numbers, the kids in my room, I have one of the smallest classrooms in the building, and my students are sitting shoulder to shoulder in some cases because the tables that I have are just too small. We were used to sitting in groups, and now we're sitting, trying to space apart. We're all facing forward, which is entertaining at best. And then you're talking about 7-year-olds who, are used to being able to talk to their friends. So you're constantly reminding them to move forward, turn forward, face forward, put your mask back on your nose, put your mask back on, put your mask back on your nose. And then they increased the things that we had to do during the day. So now to keep us in a safer situation, they have us going to breakfast together. So we're washing our hands and going to breakfast, and then coming back and washing our hands, and working for a few minutes, and then washing our hands so we can go to lunch, and then going to lunch, and then coming back and washing our hands again, and then doing a little bit of work and washing our hands before we go to recess, and washing our hands when we come back from recess. So it's I had never felt more like I needed roller skates in my life than I do now. Between
Well,
between the running. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say, well, you mentioned something, and I want to make sure I baseline one thing right there. So you mentioned classroom sizes, because one of the things we've heard over and over and over again during the course of these meetings is that it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly doable. It's, yes, we can social distance. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we can. Yes, we will. And everything's going to be fine. Now, I know from a conversation that I had with somebody outside of this, her estimate was, if she was lucky and did the math perfectly, she could fit 8, maybe 9 kids in her classroom with 6-foot distancing and proper, and all that kind of stuff. So I guess, how many kids are we talking about in a classroom? Let's start there.
Well,
Well,
mine is, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there was one clarification here that I do want to make. And because at that point about the social distancing, it was made very, very clear. And I don't think parents heard it for what it was, but it was made clear to me, to everybody else, that that the social distancing wasn't going to happen. And so I remember, one of the board members asking Carrie Wozniak specifically, so with this many kids, is there going to be social distancing? And she said, no, there's not. And so I think that just needs to be out there, because, even though the CDC will tell you, and, your health department will tell you, and, Macomb County Sheriff will tell you, everybody will tell you that 6 feet social distancing is the way it should be. They made it pretty clear that was not going to be happening if you chose face to face. And so I wanted to make sure I put that out there.
Another thing that I think should be brought up, and I don't think this affects people outside of the teaching world, but after they've made that decision, the district went to 2 cohorts: those that are going to be fully online and those who are going to be fully face to face, which sounds like a easy thing to do. And it's not to the teachers, because what they did is reshuffle the group, and you got new students got new teachers. They tried to get more teachers. I think the school district hired about 10 of them in the elementary alone, just to be able to knock down some of the numbers of what they were going to be. But that was all happening in the span of 2 weeks. So restarting, trying to figure out your class with new students and who's teaching online, who's teaching face to face, all happened in the span of 2 weeks also.
That was a lot.
And then at the high school, they did the same thing. Like, we haven't been face to face, and we will be on January 4th. I don't think there's anyone that's going to stop them from doing it on January 4th. But we had what they tried to do. What we're going to end up doing is be teaching face to face in the morning and virtually in the afternoon. So basically, I will be teaching my same classes twice, in the morning with face to face students, and then whoever picks a virtual. It
Well,
doesn't.
and that's what
Go ahead.
the junior high is doing that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And junior high is doing that.
So for a non-teacher like me, honestly, like, that was one of the things that I thought made sense as to keep numbers in classrooms down. Was, okay, you have basically a group 1 and a group 2, and let's say group 1 is in on Monday and Tuesday for full days of classes, and then Wednesday is like nope, we're deep cleaning everything, and everything gets sanitized and sterilized and yada yada. And then group 2 comes in Thursday, Friday, with maybe, or like Monday, Tuesday, group 1 is in and group 2 is online, and then Thursday, Friday, group 2 is in and group 1 is online, and then over the weekend, obviously everything gets cleaned, sterilized, all that fun stuff again. So is it more complicated? I guess is it more complicated for you to do the same thing twice? Is that effectively cutting your instruction time in half?
That is the biggest thing. Is there's a happy medium that we were asking for in between this. When we talked about cohorts coming in one time a week in the elementary and in the middle school, coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, there's somewhere in between there that's what we asked for. Is you can ramp up the small groups, you can get those kids in there more, but instead of going full face to face and full virtual. And that you bring up a very good point when you're talking about at the high school level that we're going to teach our classes twice. You're talking about probably half the instructional time that we would have gotten from keeping full virtual, because now our class sizes, our classes are going to be half days. So everything just basically gets cut in half. And you're talking about curriculum wise a lot less. And then in the elementary, I don't want to speak for them, but from what I've been told by all the elementary teachers, is Dodie brought up the hand washing and the going to breakfast and the going to lunch and then going to recess. You are losing quite a bit of instruction time that you had when you were doing virtual.
Well, so that gets back to that math. I actually sat down at the bar in my basement one night with the teacher and did the math on this. So like, again, so we talk about, okay, if it's 8 or 9 kids, social distancing, feasible, at least it's a reasonable concept we can talk about. You start talking about 20, 22, 23 kids, which is what I understand some of the classroom sizes are. So, I mean, let's just do some basic math on that. So you want your average, again, any parent, your average 5, 6, 7-year-old, whatever, is going to come into a classroom, is going to take off their coat. They are going to fiddle around because they're going to try. They're going to want to talk with their friends. They're going to want to, they're going to take their mask off 18 times and have to get told to put it back on 19 times. And then they want everybody to wash their hands. So, okay, your typical 5, 6, 7-year-old washing their hands. Again, you're supposed to do it, with warm water. It's supposed to be for at least 20 seconds. Okay, 20 kids times 20 seconds. Now you're at, quick math, 400 seconds. So there's 6.5 minutes gone before you eat. And that's assuming 20 seconds is, that doesn't include them drying their hands and spraying water at each other and doing what kids will do. But so there's 6.5 minutes gone, and I think when I was sitting down here, we came up with, let's just call it 10 minutes just to be safe, to accommodate for all of what will be the reality. So there's 10 minutes out of the start of your class done. Then they're supposed to do it again. So then so now you have to plan for another 10 minutes being gone. So now you've lost 20 minutes out of that session.
Well, and Dave, let me just edit that a little bit.
Okay.
Because in Disney we have 14 15 right now full classrooms, and only 4 of them have their own sinks. So now you're talking about 10 classrooms using 4 gang bathrooms, and only 2 children are allowed in the bathroom at the time. So try to figure out how that's going to
I
go.
don't mean to have a smile on my face right now, but I desperately want to be laughing at
do.
this situation.
So now you've got these kids who are trying to wash their hands, but they're only allowed to be in 2 in the bathroom at the time. And there are 3 classrooms going to breakfast at the same time. So they all have to come in and wash their hands and then go to breakfast. And it's way more than 10 minutes. So, I mean, you have to kind of quadruple, maybe even quintuple that in wasted time of just running back and forth to the bathroom. And that's not even going to the bathroom.
I was gonna say, and that's
Just washing hands.
that's on a nice weather day. Hey, guess what,
Correct.
kids? We live in Michigan.
Yeah.
We're about to have snow.
Oh,
Kids
what do
are
you mean
to
about
show-
to? We
Well,
had snow. And
yeah.
the snow pants, like winter, it's one of those things I feel like, every teacher has that nemesis where they're like, oh, I hate doing this or I hate doing that, or snow is my nemesis. I'm like, please God, I know the grass needs it. I know the grass needs rain. I know we need snow, but it's such a catch-22 because, like, yes, they enjoy it. And yes, if they have the things to wear, it's great, but it adds a lot of time, and you get the snow pants on backwards and you get the coats tucked into the snow pants, or tucked inside and backwards. And I had a kid put his coat on inside out and I just zipped it. I'm like, good job, let's go. So those kind of things, all of those.
It's 2020, rules have changed.
Right.
It's
right. Rules have changed, like, and a lot of times, like, thank goodness I have that mask, because there's some things they just can't do by themselves. The insert came out of a boot.
right.
I got to stick my hand in that boot and I got to help that kid get the boot on. So, I mean, health, life, and safety for them. And just for the sake of going outside, which is something they so desperately need.
Well, and that's so again. So we're talking about, so there's again, so we're talking about a minimum. Let's just call it a half hour at this point. We were at about 20 minutes. Let's call it at least a half hour at this point. And that's not including what you guys have to do for yourselves and for a classroom prep, like for getting ready for the day, for dealing with the day and that kind of stuff. So, I guess let's, kind of walk through what you guys have to do on your own.
I hate to have that time, but Carrie or Dodie, can you talk about that?
Do you mean like prepping before the kids come?
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, I'm, as much as I'd like to support the union, I stay later so we can do our walk-in and all that, but I stay later so that I can have everything lined up prior. So that's literally like, I go in, I wash my hands. Now I wear a regular mask to walk in. I go in, I wash my hands, I turn on my Promethean board. I load up my computer. I normally have my computer loaded up before I walk in the building. And, I have that ready. I plug all my stuff in, and then I put my shield on. I sanitize again because I've touched things in the classroom. And then by that time, the bell rings. As the union, we decided to walk in, 5 minutes prior, which is not normally what I do. But, the after school, that it's the same process, only in reverse, where, I have to clean up after they leave. Because there's only so many things that they can touch and I can expect them. They can't help each other. So if somebody drops something, then it's my responsibility to clean up after that, organize, make sure everything's put back where it's supposed to be, so that when the cleaner comes in, papers don't get, curled up and things like that. And then there's the washing again. Like I wash my hands again and grab my things and, take my shield off right before I walk out the door, and then walk out the door. So I actually, personal note, I actually now have a prescription cream now for my face and for my hands, because they're just so chapped and dry and bleeding. And so those are things I know that, you saw those pictures in March of those nurses and doctors that had the marks around their faces,
Mhm.
and that's literally what I was getting. I'm getting around my face and on my hands because of the hand washing and And I'm not a germaphobe. I work with 5-year-olds. How can you be? But, I wash my hands a lot. And this year has been incredibly difficult. So
Yeah, I
I don't know.
agree.
You got a different process, Dodie.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. We have to get everything ready. As we're leaving a lot of stuff we do at home and bring it in ready to run. But it's the constant, the mask wearing is tiring, and you really have a sympathy for the medical professionals that have been enduring all of this for months more than we have. But to walk in that building at 8 o'clock in the morning and literally wear that mask until 3:30 in the afternoon when you leave for the day finally. Very little break time. I used to think I could take it off during our 25 minutes of recess, but the kids feel that that's their time to approach you, so I don't even get a break from it then. I won't take my mask off in the building anymore because of the sheer number of family germs that are in there. And so they were supposed to clean our rooms so we could eat in them because we're not allowed to eat in the teacher's lounge. And I do remember going to a session and we asked about, well, where are we going to be able to eat? And we were told to eat in our car, which is what I've been doing. So I go out to my car at lunchtime every day and take my
Again,
20-minute.
in December
Yeah.
in Michigan.
Yes.
I
take
would
my
assume
mask
it
off.
probably takes, there are some days where it's going to take your car that long just to warm up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing I have a seat warmer because that goes on really fast. But it's the only place I walk. I have a bottle of hand sanitizer in my car. I open the door, sanitize, sit down, turn my car on, take my mask off. I have about 20 minutes to 15 maybe to gobble up whatever I bring. And then I have to go back in and make copies and get ready for the afternoon. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's tiring. It's very tiring. We all left Friday afternoon exhausted. We're all we take turns breaking down, losing our shit, crying. I'll have a bad day and then Carrie will, and we bring ourselves together, and then we're there for another member of the staff who's going through the same thing. We're so isolated from each other that on top of everything else, where we're used to be camaraderie, where we could work together as a team and support each other and talk about our problems in the classroom and outside, and we don't have that. So we're very isolated, and like the kids who aren't going to school, we feel that, and we're in the buildings, and it's just so difficult to make it through each day, to make it through. It's tough. It's a really tough situation.
Well, and even those of us, that have the time management skills to be able to say, I'm going to allocate this amount of time to do this and this amount of time to do that, and Dodie's been doing it 20 years. Sarah, I know you're between that 15 and 20, and I know I'm at 16. We're pretty good at being able to say, all right, I have this amount of time, I can get these 3 things done, but it's when our specials teachers, you have that one prep in the day, and our preps now, like at least at Disney, they're in our classrooms. So we can't even stay in our classrooms to do the work we need to do. I carry like a crate with all my stuff in it when I have to leave, when the specials teacher comes in, and I have to leave my classroom to go and do work for my classroom. But then again, in these 8 days, we had specials taken away from us, a couple times because they were pulled to cover classrooms. So that one break you have, where I'm like, all right, I know I'm not going to get a break today because so-and-so's in, a different classroom. So during my lunch period, which again, with 5-year-olds, it takes forever. We talked about the hand washing. They have to be dressed fully in their snow gear before you even send them to the lunchroom. So not only do I have to wash their hands, but I have to get them dressed and get them down to the lunchroom. And then I have just a few minutes. And so it was like, I guess I'm not going to eat today because I have to make copies, because I have to, do the things that I need for my afternoon or later in the week, because I don't know if I'm going to have a prep, and I don't want to be here till 6 o'clock. So there's all of those things, those time management things that we're so good at that just get thrown out the window because of these constant schedule changes. And Sarah's shaking her head. I know she can attest to this too.
Sure.
Well, I have not been with students because I'm at the high school. We did do like the small group things, but I am in special ed, so things are constantly just, I realize, I'm on the kids' time always. It's like, it was like that before, and now it's 12 times harder because every day it's something different. And even like now it's just with the technology, I have kids whose parents will like text me and say, we can't get on our internet today. We can't, and then you have that thrown at you. And then like, now you have to find a time to schedule a time to work with that kid. And you have to figure out like, okay, how am I going to get that in there? Where am I going to fit that in? So it's so much jumbling.
And Dave, I think this brings up a couple of good points. We as a union have never said, I'll just put this out there, that administration and custodians and all of the Fraser public school staff are doing everything, along with the teachers, are doing everything to try and make it as safe as possible. They're working their tails off. Everyone's working overtime. The point being, this is not sustainable. This is not mentally sustainable for anyone in here. And then when you talk about the physical aspect of it, the high school hasn't had students, and we're going to go back on January 4th. Our custodians, our administrators are going to the elementaries to help out. So those are always big keys. Who watches the lunch when the teachers finally get their lunch? Well, it's administration, and it's administration from the high school also, because they have to fill in those gaps. So sustainable, it's not sustainable to keep on doing it this way. I don't know where we find the bodies just to be able to do this.
Well, because there were a couple of things that you guys hit on that I wanted to make sure we called out specifically. So, I mean, talking about with everything going on, let's, all the push to get the kid, get butts back in seats and the kids actually in there for a full day. How long would you guesstimate you're actually getting to teach them? Is it half the day? Is it less than half the day? Is it like what is that? Like, what is a typical day? Like, what is that ratio of learning versus new chaos that must be dealt with?
Yeah. How much of the curriculum you're saying that you're able to teach with those kids?
Yeah, one would assume that, like, okay, we know that on a typical a 7.5 whatever hour school day, okay, great, they've got lunches and recess and that kind of stuff, and let's call it 6 hours were actual learning and life was good. We talk about hey, they've got to wash their hands and that takes this time away. Hey, we've got this and that takes that time away. Like, are we looking at 4 hours of instructional time a day? Are we looking at 3 hours of instructional time a day? Like, where, like, just, and I'm not looking for any definitive answer. And if this is a dumb question, feel free to tell me so. I'm just trying to give whoever listens to this a reference point to what being back in school is actually doing for the kids, if anything.
I think it's going to vary a lot from class to class, obviously. I have a split this year. Now I have a split from the 30th of November to the end of the school year. So I have first graders and second graders. I kind of got a hand-picked group because it's a split. So mine are more independent, and I'm able to teach probably maybe 2/3 of those 6 hours, maybe 4. But I'm lucky. I have some very independent children. I also have an added advantage in that I taught first grade last year, and over 2/3 of my class had me last year. And so we hit the ground running with an established routines and groups. So they're used to me. But I know that there are other teachers in the building who, as of the 30th, got at least 50% of their class was brand new. And for them, it's like going back to September. So they're literally having to show the kids where to get a pencil and how to get a piece of paper and, all of that stuff, because we don't want the kids moving around too much. So even the distribution of your paper, your work for the day can be a logistical nightmare when you have, 5 inches to move around a classroom. And because you can't have the kids passing the paper out anymore, now you have to do it. So again, that takes away more time. So I know there are some teachers in the building who are back at square one and are literally, just trying to set up procedural stuff that they would through the whole month of September. So that's been very difficult for them. And they're probably teaching, if they're lucky, a third of the time. Wouldn't you say, Carrie?
I would say if we were to take an average, I would say it's probably around half. I would say, because of the fact that, you were mentioning the procedural things, and we're not just talking about washing your hands and things like that, but when you have a new class, and even for me, where, there were certain procedures that I had when I had 8 kids that had to change completely when I have 20 kids, those kind of things, where they had freedoms before that they don't have now, because I had the expectation that, it was going to be a bit longer and we were going to be able to have time to establish those routines. My teaching partner and I, she finally said to me, Carrie, you have to stop thinking of this as December. You have to tell yourself this is September. This is not, we're not mid-year, and so I think that mind shift had to happen, and it did. 8 days it happened. And so I think when you take that into consideration, things that you would expect them, that you're like, I was saying to myself, why can't they do this? Why is there so much trouble in this particular area or this particular area? All I'm asking to do is to flip their paper over. All I'm asking to do is to, get a pencil out. Why is this such an issue? Is because, for however many months they had it available in a different way, organized in a different way when they were with me. But then also they had mom, dad, or learning coach next to them, turning the page for them or handing them a pencil or, oh, my paper fell on the floor. And I'm like, pick it up, like what? I'm not coming over there, so just those things, again, all of those things, they're time factor. So if I look at mine, I'm probably around 2/3 too. Like I look at what have I cut out in math? What have I said? I have to let that go. Or what have I cut out or changed in writing because I can't sit with a small group. I have to be able to popcorn around and I have to be able to be, so the whole, we talk about best practices. And I think for those teachers, and in every profession, you have those teachers that shine and work 110%, and you have those that don't. But I'm going to say for those of us that are really working towards best practices, COVID kind of went, nope, and so now we're ending up in this, okay, I can't do this, but what can I do? And I can't do that, but what can I do? So the small group aspect, you can't sit with a small group and teach like that. The getting next to the kid and me actually holding their hand, those kind of things, I have to be quick and I have to be out, because that 15 minutes accumulated with that one student, it adds up fast. So,
and one of the other things you touched on is teachers. So, we've heard on some of the recent board meetings, hey, we've added this new teacher, we've added that new teacher. I know just from conversation with friends who are teachers that the retirement numbers, I believe, are a little bit higher this year than they are on a normal year, where people, opted out, people that, have, taken leaves, that have done, that kind of stuff. So, where are these teachers magically appearing from that they're hiring, and how are the staffing levels from your perspective? Like, are you in a good place with with what these, with the student to teacher ratios and all that kind of stuff?
Well, when it comes to the student where they found them. I don't really know. 10 teachers to try and lower the class sizes, but no, we're not comfortable with. First of all, when you're talking about those meetings that we had in the summer, where are we going to put everybody? There's only a finite number of rooms that you have in a building, and there's only a finite number of teachers, and there's these students. So we are anywhere from 20 to 25, and that's with 20 to 25 students in a classroom face to face, and that's with hiring 10 more teachers. When you take a look at, we only have so many rooms, like they talked about, they can't eat here and they can't do this, and the specials are coming into their classrooms. That's because we're using all the rooms that we possibly can. When I tell you that it's all hands on deck, and we appreciate what administration and staff and custodians have been doing, they've been working their tail off for it, but there's only so much room we have. There is only so many teachers that we have, or custodians or administration, to be able to do these things. No, this is our biggest problem. We had the FEA stance at the beginning of the year was the highly recommended.
For those jargon, I always do that. So what does FEA stand for?
Education. That's our union, Fraser Education Association. So what our stance was at the beginning of the year was, we'll do what you say, but we have to be able to do the highly recommended and the recommended different procedures that the state of Michigan did. It's becoming harder and harder to do that. And that's the social distancing, that's wearing the mask, that's all of the protocols that you're trying to put in. So no, we are not comfortable. Unfortunately, I am not a union president to the students. I wish I was, but I don't make those decisions. But for our teachers, and me and Carrie had this conversation before, I expect them to be 6 feet away from their students. Now, Carrie, who teaches the young ones, says which she's right. It's almost impossible to stay 6 feet away from the young ones because the shoe sole came out, or they have to have their shoe tied, or they winter pants on. We're also considerate, caring human beings who love our students. So being able to do those sort of things and stay 6 feet and stay with all the protocols, we're risking it every time because of that kind of situation.
So no, obviously a lot of this stuff just came up, over the course of the past 8 days, but I mean, I'm sure a lot of these, you guys know your classrooms, what students are like. So how long have these concerns been voiced? To the board or to whomever? I guess that's how has that conversation? Are those conversations always ongoing? Has that been happening since the summer? Has making sure that your concerns are heard about all this stuff? How is that process going?
Carrie,
go ahead, Jim.
Well,
Okay.
I was just going to say that I talk with central administration pretty frequently. And they have the same concerns. I mean, it's not like they don't have the same concern we do. They do care about our safety, but it's just the possibility of being able to do that. Now, we really didn't have a lot to talk about with the board because our plan, we thought, was pretty darn good. We had some problems with people being uncomfortable with, the cross-contamination, 3 sets of small groups in, but we could social distance. We could do those things. The rooms were clean on time. All those type of stuff could happen then. So now when you go into this kind of situation, now you're having a custodian, being able to just do the essential, walking into the classroom, spraying it down with their 360 machines or these different kind of machines that disinfect, but they can't wipe down the tables. They can't do the floors. It's that kind of problem that we just don't have the manpower or the time to do. Carrie, you were going to say something?
They're not, when they're doing the cleaning, they're only cleaning our light switches in bathrooms. They're not even cleaning the whole classroom. So that's something to kind of be aware of too. And I don't know if parents were aware of that, that they are cleaning the bathrooms midday, and, our custodian's great to do that. And then they sanitize the light switches. But I do want to say this is that I think it comes down to, Stephen Covey talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people. And One of them is seek first to understand. And Dave, you were asking, how long and how many times have we been talking to them about this? And I think our concerns, because of the fact, especially those of us that were able to be there in the summer and we're able to give that time, and we voiced these concerns, and all through this time period, we've been voicing our concerns. But I think it's all about perspective, and so, that seek first to understand that, and we want to be understood. So, if you look at a bird's eye view, just, trying to be real simple here. You look at a bird's eye view and you look at the shape of a cone, it's going to look like a circle. It's going to look like a circle when you're looking down. But when you're down on the ground, it has total 3 dimensions. You look at how wide it is, how deep it is, how, those kind of things. And it looks a lot different from a different perspective. And so I think, when there was those invites of, come and see, come and help us. We want you to see what we're dealing with. We want you to see, what our classrooms look like with all of these, even just the chairs. It wasn't even the students, all these chairs and all these tables. And, is this conducive to what we're asking our students to be a part of, to learning? And so when that perspective is shared, I think it's really something to be valued, and not just from, and not to say first year teachers don't have value. That's not what I'm saying. But somebody who's just coming into this profession, not having the plethora of resources and experience that those us veteran teachers have, we know what it's supposed to be. We know, what's right and what's not right, and what's, something of a concern, and what's kind of like, we can let that go. And I just don't feel as if, yes, are they concerned? I'm sure they are. But are they willing to truly see the perspective? And maybe are we truly willing to see their perspective too? So I think that seek first to understand is a big key point.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, so in that vein, you made a point about something that the custodians were cleaning, basically bathrooms and light switches. How's the rest of everything else getting cleaned?
Well, that's in the midday.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they do come in with their 360 machines and they clean. What Carrie Wozniak and what, Dan Waters said is they clean for sanitation. They're not cleaning for, appearances. And so, we're very lucky in that if I say to our custodians, hey, and I won't give his name, hey, so-and-so, my tables are disgusting. Can you please, I will move, the little toolboxes off. Can you please clean them? Absolutely. They'll be done tomorrow morning. If I don't ask, it gets done once a week. So, but that in itself is concerning because I don't have my 5-year-olds clean their tables. I don't.
So, and that was, and I guess that's kind of what I was driving at is I know that one of the comments that has come up is the expectation that kids would be cleaning their own desks. And I think anybody who's ever been a parent understands that cleaning is not necessarily a child's strong suit in any way, shape, or form. So, I mean, I guess like is that still what's supposed to be going on?
Well, from our understanding, from what we hear from the board meetings, yes. In reality, Carrie just told you she's not going to have her 5-year-olds clean them. Things are not talk about sanitary as opposed to, or disinfecting as opposed to looks and all that stuff. When they bring in the 360 machine, it's a Clorox 360. It shoots a mist in the air. Is basically what it does, and it attaches onto things and kills and disinfects. But that film is still everywhere. So can think, and they don't have the manpower to wipe down the table every single day when they're doing all that. There's no way.
So I guess just to follow that through to the logical conclusion. So therefore, when the kids are coming in the next day, you've got that residue, that film sitting there, and that's what, that's phenomenal. He says, dripping with sarcasm. So I guess with what now, and having heard that, okay, so these committees were in place, all these conversations had taken place, these concerns had been raised all throughout this process. I guess, are you feeling heard? Like, are you feeling like, I guess, are you feeling that the responses you're getting back, I mean, I don't even know. Number one, are you getting responses? Number two, do you feel that they're adequate, and appropriate? And I guess, how are you feeling, towards, well, this might be a touchy question. And again, feel free to let's just skip this one, Dave. I mean, how are you feeling towards, the superintendent and the board these days with all that in mind?
I will take that one. So I have a great relationship, and the union has a great relationship with its central office. They're being mandated to do something, and I think from conversations I've had with them watching the board meetings, they're in lockstep that this is the way they want to go. I don't think.
Okay, I want to make sure I ask a clarifying question there. You say, or you just said that they're being mandated to do something.
Yes, the board made the decision.
Okay, so therefore they have created their own mandate to do so. They are mandating that things be done.
They're mandating central office to do what they're doing.
Okay, I just want to make sure I clarified that. Yeah.
We don't. That comes from the board. The board voted for that, and any conversation that I've had with the board, any board members, or any kind of correspondence when we're talking about board meetings or emails, they're in lockstep. They're not listening to anything because this is the route that they want to go.
Hey, John, I don't know that a lot of people know this, and maybe it's common knowledge because we're teachers, but the superintendent is not a board member. And I don't know if a lot of people know that. She doesn't get to vote. It's not as if that, she can speak, but, the Board of Education is separate from administration. So Dave, when he says, he has a good, good relationship with central office, he's talking about the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, those people that are part of, the Fraser Public Schools staff.
Okay.
So the board is a separate entity that works with that. So I don't know if that makes sense, Dave.
No, it absolutely does, and I don't know that, because I mean, I don't know that people understand that. So that's
right.
A good clarifying point to make.
Yep, and basically, the board in any kind of correspondence, we had our members email the board, have them talk to at the board meetings, and you've heard about the cutoff at one of the board meetings when our teachers were talking about their concerns. I really don't know if there's anything that sways them on this situation. I don't know why it got so extreme, and I would love to understand why we are not even contemplating the pluses and the minuses of what we're doing. I mean, we just spent the last half hour talking about what a normal day is. In the high school, when you're talking about half the time, now you're only talking half the time that we usually have to teach a class, but that's without the protocols too. That's just the sheer minutes in it. We have to take care of the protocols also in the high school. So why did we rush back with everybody? I don't think it's curriculum because we're not.
And I guess that's where I was going with this is like, so yeah. So it seems like the general consensus, at least among teachers, and would be, hey, no, and yet here we are. So like, what's behind that mandate, if you will?
You know what? It went from, those board meetings were getting kind of ugly, and there's some very vocal parents that want their kids in class, and I'm not going to try and guess, what their philosophy or political stance or whatever is. They just wanted those kids back, and whether they think this is a hoax or it's not a hoax. But it's not for curriculum. I mean, because we're not going, listen, Fraser's always had the hashtag Fraser family. And it's what we put on tweets and we talk about it. We know that our kids, after a global pandemic, are going to be behind in curriculum. We know that for a fact. The one thing that our teachers—
So is everyone else, though, too.
Yeah. Something that our teachers know is that's going to happen, and we'll do what it takes to get them moved up when we get out of this dark cloud above us. I don't think any teacher would say, I'm not going to do what it takes to get those kids where they're supposed to be. But now we've gone into a policy where this is even making them farther behind. And I get it. Some people don't like their kids teach or learning online. We agree with you. I don't like
Yeah.
my kids learning online. But at the same token, we're not doing it for curriculum. If it's for the social needs of the students, we're not doing it for that, because they get their lunches and they get their recesses. But otherwise, there is no small groups. They have their masks on. There's no cross contaminating with them. They're all sitting in their seats. So it's not for the social emotional needs, so to speak, because it's a different type of classroom. It's not a normal classroom anymore. So my question is, and I guess I'm being sarcastic or whatnot. My question is, why are we doing this then? If it's not for the curriculum and it's not for the social economic, is it just we have to be back in class?
You mentioned the word normal a couple times, and this has been a recurring statement of mine in many of these things that have gone on, is that I feel like truly one of the biggest issues that we're facing right now is people who are feeling the need to apply whatever duct tape or Band-Aid solutions that they can in order to try to get back to February and to try to get back to what they perceive as having as was normal, when the sad reality is they are just failing to understand that that is gone. That what, where we were in February, yes, we may get back to in another year, in another 2 years, but not now, not where we are. And so it seems like, and again, to your point, like I'm not trying to, point fingers or cast aspersions on anybody, but I have noticed a vibe that I will say that people view school as daycare. More than they view it as a teaching institution, more than they view it as a place, all the things you mentioned, the curriculum, the social aspects. No, I don't care. I just don't want my kid at home. And that's where they need to be during the day. And so it's, to your point, I mean, I would, and I don't think that's really come out through any of this, any of the meetings that I've seen or any of this is exactly what is that driving force that's causing this.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, because our teachers will do whatever it takes to make it as normal as possible. But at the end of the day, there's nothing they can really do in this sort of environment. We know that in the next couple of years, once we get past this kind of this situation, that there's going to have to be a lot of work done by us to get them caught up to where they're supposed to be. We know that in every level of school. But at the same token, so I just feel like it's putting a round peg in a square hole. There's nothing really that fits in here. And like we said before, we would love if we ramped up the small groups, if we saw them a little bit more, because I think it is beneficial. I have a daughter who's a kindergartner at Salk. Her favorite day was the day she came in. But at the same token,
with our kids, yeah.
Yeah, but she was really excited. She's a kindergartner, right? But at the same token, is she going to be able to do all the work that she needs to do in the class to be where they're supposed to be? I think that's a new conversation. There's where they're supposed to be has to be a conversation now.
Right.
Another thing that's brought up quite a bit. Other school districts went face to face. You've got L'Anse Creuse, you've got Anchor Bay, you got Armada, Warren Woods went back. No one talks about where their technology infrastructure is compared to ours. The reason why L'Anse Creuse and Anchor Bay went back, Anchor Bay doesn't have Wi-Fi in their high school. I mean, they don't have a lot of things. L'Anse Creuse doesn't have one-on-one devices. We've been in the leading edge of technology since 2008, I think it was, when we first started with these bonds. We've been on the leading edge. We have the infrastructure. We can deliver content in several different ways that L'Anse Creuse, that Anchor Bays, that Armadas can't. And that's another thing that really drives me nuts. Well, Anchor Bay can do it. Why can't we? L'Anse Creuse can do it because they feel like they almost have to.
And and that is very much a point that I don't think I've heard before. Even as involved or as much as I've been paying attention to this, and that's a good point. Is the other part of that, being able to understand where we are right now in reality is just because you can doesn't mean you should. Like that's just a rule of life. So, you get all the kids back in school? Yep. Should you? Probably not right now. And I mean, that's one of the nice things to hear is that Fraser has that mitigation factor. I mean, that's, my brain and everything I do, day to day is all, like risk mitigation, contingency planning and that kind of stuff. So it's good to hear that one of the reasons why Fraser didn't need to follow suit or follow in step with them is because you have, or I guess I should say we have, these other these capabilities that other districts don't.
Yeah, and I think that gets lost on the shuffle quite a bit, but I mean, that is the basic concept of it. The more we talk about it here, the more frustrated and the more confused I get, because I don't know what we're arguing about. Is it just to bring them back in? I have no idea, but what's going on right now it's not going to work. And that's the problem that I have with it, is that we are driving our people, and I'm not just saying teachers, we're driving all of our people into the ground, working so darn hard to try to make it seem somewhat normal, that we're not. It's almost an impossible feat, and it's also risking people's lives and their families' lives and their personal lives for what? And I still don't get the answer for that.
So, and to your point, so one of the things that we hear or that we've heard over and over and over again is that, okay, well, we have all these mitigation strategies. All these mitigation strategies are in place. Are they? Are they followed? Are they working? Are you seeing that from a day-to-day perspective?
Well, bringing up the two, then I'll let other people talk. But I do want to bring this up, talking about the two instances that happened in the 8 days. There was something that happened at Edison, and there was something that happened at Dooley. And one thing that people like to say is, we are not seeing the spread or the big outbreaks in schools, right? It doesn't matter when we started this, there was 8,000 cases a day. It doesn't matter if you're getting the outbreak, the virus, there's a lot of virus going around in our communities, period.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter if they transferred it at school or not, someone's going to come in with it. And when that happens, that knocked out a whole, I think it was fourth grade in Edison, or 13 or 14 of them in Edison, plus the teacher, the principal, and the secretary, right? At Dooley, it knocked out the 3 and 4 preschool programs, because that's just what happens. So they can say all the time that, schools seem to be safe. The data says that there's going to be safe. We might not be, because we do work our tails off to try, and that's part of our jobs too, is to mitigate and make sure that we might be working our tail off. It's just going to happen with what's going on around in the community.
Well, and so to me, I mean, that's almost one of those, the term I always is cognitive dissonance, that I don't understand why there's a discrepancy in thinking, because to me, schools almost should have the same PR problem that bars and restaurants have, in that, you don't necessarily know, like, okay, so yeah, you can bars and restaurants, you've heard all the news stories and everything, where, only 4.4% of the cases have actually been, contact traced back to there, but they get a bad rap. Well, and it's because, think it through. If somebody says, hey, I tested positive, they are more likely to say, if they're the kind of person that is going out during all of this, they are likely to have gone to a bar or restaurant. And they are more likely to say that, hey, I went to TGI Fridays, or I went to wherever, than, oh yeah, by the way, I was also hanging out in my buddy's basement with 20 people last week. They're not going to say that, because they're not going to want to put that back on their friend. So schools now have that same issue where, like every bartender has a second job. Every, patrons go out and live their lives and then come into that location. And it's the same thing with schools, where, kids are a victim of whatever it is that their parents believe in, and whatever it is that, their parents do outside of the home. And so, they, have no control over that whatsoever, but they are then and that's kind of where I was going at with the ratios, is, I believe the numbers you've heard is, I want to make sure I'm not misquoting Fred. I believe it's for every 10 minutes you're in an enclosed room with 6 other people, your risk of infection goes up by, I believe it's either 7 or 8%. And for every 6 people that you add, and for every 10 minutes that you add, you basically double for every one of those factors. So, looking at that, it is almost inevitable to me that there will be outbreaks at schools, that there will be issues, that are focused on schools, and it won't be the fault of the teachers, and it won't be the fault of the custodians. It won't be, it will be nothing more than just the simple math of number of people with number of external focuses and, number of external touch points coming together in a single location.
Well, and I guess that's the difficult part is, for me as a teacher, and I know for others, that it's when I think about, am I keeping my students safe? That's my main, keeping them safe emotionally, keeping them safe physically, keeping them safe academically. I mean, all of those things are on our shoulders. And so when I think about those kind of things, if, I know I had a student that had COVID, just the week before we opened, just the week before the December 9th, back to school date, and so the whole idea of, kids, for a while they were saying, kids are kind of immune to it. Well, that kind of got debunked. They're not immune. Their symptoms aren't as bad. But, and I told this story when we were on the board meeting, my 4th grade niece went to a Macomb County school, and, she came home, had a fever, a runny nose. They didn't know it was COVID, and she infected her baby brother, who had a fever for a day, little runny nose, he's less than 1. And her other brother, who had, a little bit older than her, had a little bit of worse symptoms. And then her 2 parents. And they were sick, like really sick. Were they hospitalized? No, but they live with her elderly parents, her mom, my sister-in-law's elderly parents. And so they were kind of like quarantined in their bedroom, so it's those kind of stories that really hit home to say, this is not just about, like I said, throughout, and Dodie will tell you throughout this entire thing, I've said, I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm type O blood. And I know that if I got it or my family got it, we're going to be fine. We're going to recover. It's going to be all right. But what about those that go home and, their family's not okay, and those are the kind of things that, you can say it wouldn't be the teacher's fault, but with the kind of individuals that I work with and the kind of individual that I know on myself, I would feel responsible. Like what more could I have done? Should I made sure that, maybe this kid didn't wash their hand as long as they should have, or, maybe, I forgot to do this, or, so I think, when we talk about the mitigation strategies, are they working? Sure. But they're only working, I guess they're only working as good as the numbers will allow, so it's an inevitability that somebody in our classroom is going to get it. There's going to be some quarantining. There's going to be some other people that get it and don't make it, so dealing with that inevitability is very, very difficult. The anxiety that I have, I know, is higher than it's been in a long time.
Well, and to that point, I mean, that's one of those things when, you talk about common talking points, because I think this is one of those things that I've heard on every one of those board meetings from parents that were pushing to get the kids back in school is, oh, it's just the flu. It's got a really low death rate. It's not a big deal. Well, one of the things that I think has come to light more and more is the long haulers. So to your point, Carrie, yeah, you might, heaven forbid, you do get it. You might not die, but you could wind up with respiratory issues. You could wind up with, they're seeing nerve damage and neurological issues now in some of this stuff. I mean, I know just from, my own experience, I get brain fog a lot more than I used to. So, I mean, it's a very real thing. And to your point, it's, I can relate to you when you say what you said, because like, that's why we shut down our studios. My whole point was, I could not live with myself if one of my engineers or one of my staff or one of the show hosts or guests contracted this and something went sideways, and that's a lot of weight to put on a teacher, is that responsibility of those 20 kids. And it's sadly the old Vidal says, and then they tell two friends, and they touch two people and they touch two people, and so on and so on and so on, and what goes on outside of the sphere of your control.
Yeah, it's a
You know,
lot.
you also you listen to Dr. Fauci on there, still stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask and all that stuff. And I haven't congregated indoors with 25 people since March. And now everywhere we can't do it everywhere in society except for classrooms. It just, it's hard to connect the dots on those sort of things. And I get it.
I'll be honest, it's one of those things I don't understand either, is why it's for all internal gatherings except schools. I can't fathom that either.
We could guess politically, and I know you don't want to get into I get in the political part of it. But you're right when you're talking about daycare and you're talking about the economy. And another thing is that she puts these, the governor put out these directives, but they're for the whole state, and the community at the local level should assess their risk comparative to what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you said that, John. I'm so glad you said that.
You look at Macomb County and where our numbers are, they're a heck of a lot different than Marquette over in the UP. That's just the way it comes down to it. So or
even just right down the road in Detroit. We're not that, Detroit's looking at last time I looked, I believe they're at a 7.8% positive rate. Macomb, last time I looked, we broke 21%.
Yeah, it's just, but we're not even looking at that. The governor says it's okay, so we're going to do it. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Well, so and that kind of, I guess that segues into one of the other topics / questions that I wanted to make sure we hit, which is, so with all of this in mind, have you, the teachers, collaborated, thought through, worked through an alternate plan, a better and different way of doing things that maybe you've talked to the board about? Is there, is that something that's happening?
We have suggested alternate hybrid plans that other school districts, neighboring school districts are using, instead of this full-blown back to school. We have suggested them over and over again when they first talked about coming back full, going from that 3 half-day cohorts to full day all kid classrooms. We asked them then that couldn't we come up with a hybrid that was somewhere in the middle. There were a parents group that asked, the teachers had asked the same thing, and it was heard on deaf ears. No, they didn't want to hear about a hybrid plan. They wanted to be back full for whatever reason they had.
So, and because again, I guess, and this does that kind of loops back on one of the earlier points, which was that plan was there, where, that ability to have, the smaller groups, in for, a day and have them, online or virtual for the rest of it. You took my notes away from me. Sorry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
You were talking about, the hybrid, the plan that it was working.
Oh, well, so and then to your point, for whatever reason, that just kind of went away. So, was that where you guys thought was the right solution for the issue?
No, they didn't. I don't think they did pick the right solution. I think that.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase
Okay.
my question. Was the that hybrid model that seemed to be okay, was that what you thought was the right way to move forward, or were there other options?
I think we started with the right idea. They had originally planned to run the hybrid until the end of January, and I could see the the plan of that would be to get you through the holidays where there's going to be all of that, family gatherings, even to the limited extent. There's still going to be a lot more gatherings than there would be, say, in September, October. And when they first laid out their go back to school plan for this year, that's what they looked at. They looked at that kind of a long, out to January. The 25th of January would have given us a couple good weeks after the holidays to get to that 14-day quarantine mark. And then somewhere in the middle of the fall, there was a group that just decided that their kids had to be back right now, and they had to be back full, and that was the end of it. And that's what they heard, and then never heard anything else after that. It's like they put on blinders and couldn't see except for that one little portion that was in front of them. And so when we suggested amping up the small cohort groups that we had started with, and extending their day or bringing them in twice a week or whatever, that was just it was like they never heard those suggestions. And so it was shut down, and they went from a very limited group to all in one giant leap.
So,
well, and one other thing is they also said, and I know every school district across the country, I should say, I know in the state of Michigan, and maybe John, you can speak to this after, is, every month they are required to review the data and then submit a new plan or a continuum plan as to what's going to happen with the schooling. And so based on, and this is what we were told, based on the COVID numbers, based on hospitalizations, based on deaths, based on outbreaks in the school, gathering all of that information month to month, they were then going to either stay the same, pull back, amp up slowly. And that's what we were told when this whole thing started, that those were going to be the options month to month to month. And so we were, I think, maybe somewhat prepared for being flexible. And that's something that we were told. And I know it's always it's kind of like a mantra now: be flexible, be patient, all those things. And so we were kind of prepared for that every month they were going to reevaluate based on what we just talked about. And it was going to be either we're going to stay the same, we'll pull back if we need to, pivot. That's it, pivot, friends, pivot. So we were going to pivot back to virtual, or we were going to slightly ramp up, based on what the data showed. And so I think that expectation for us was blown out the window when they went from this, the numbers are here and yes, they're getting worse. I think we'll go full face-to-face. Let's just.
Well, so, and that's, you use the word slightly and gradual, and this was more of a rip the Band-Aid off.
Right. Yeah. There's no hair left. It's all gone.
Right. And they made that decision while the numbers in Macomb continue to climb. So that was, I think, what threw the teachers for the biggest loop is, as we're watching the numbers through Macomb County go higher and higher, thinking they can't possibly want us back in the classroom when the numbers are so high, when in the fall they were much lower and we were going 3 half days a week. Now the numbers are much higher, and all of a sudden we're going back face to face.
Well,
It just didn't make any sense.
I think that's one of the things that's been frustrating for me, and probably for you as well, is, to your point, Carrie, they said they're going to be looking at those numbers, and they're going to be looking at, infection rates and hospitalizations and all that kind of stuff. But what they have never said, and no, I don't think anybody has gotten them to say,
what source
is where the thresholds are.
Oh, okay.
Hey, we can look at those numbers
Right.
as they blow past 10%, blow past 15%, blow past 20%, but you never told us, 15% is the trigger for a
Well,
rollback.
but Dave, why would they? It's kind of like, it's like those snow days where they're like, okay, if we get 6 inches, you're like, it's 5.95 inches,
Right.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think they designed that purposely because they didn't want to have those limitations. I think like anything else, I think when you start to strap a number to, days or rates or something like that, when you strap a number, you're kind of held to it, and so
Well,
I think that was
that's
by
what I think.
design. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was by design.
That goes back to us saying that I don't think there is any kind of number that would have stopped this board as long as the governor says it was okay, then they're doing it. And I that makes teachers feel like guinea pigs. Can we do it face to face? How bad is it going to be? What's going on? Well, let's just give it a try. Let's just throw them all in the classroom. Let's just throw them all together and let's see what happens.
Well, and again, because I do want to keep politics out of it. It's not that Governor Whitmer said it was okay. She said, here are the guidelines, and it is up to you, the local districts, to make your own determinations as to whether or not you feel it's okay.
Well, when I spoke at the board meeting the last time, that was like the end part. And I got kind of like ticked off because I was like, damn it, I wish I could have gotten to the end. My 5 minutes was up.
Right.
But my last portion said exactly that, and it talked about leadership, and it talked about, when your president gives an initiative and then says, you know what, it's the powers now to the states. And then the state says, okay, now it's to the local government. And the local government says, okay, we're going to, based on Macomb County or Wayne County or, whatever, we're going to make the decision based on what's happening here in our backyard. And I think, it takes strength and leadership to say, you know what, even though, the governor says it's okay, K-8 in the Upper Peninsula, where the demographics are different and the population is different, the density of the population is different. It might not be okay in Macomb County when we're reaching, 20 to 21%. So I think it's that blanket, and that's really what the emails to parents and the emails to other stakeholders said, was the governor says K-8, it's safe for K-8 to go back. And that's been their mantra. That's been their blanket statement. And so John, I'm so glad you brought that up, that they really needed to look at the whole picture, the whole picture of Macomb County versus Michigan as a whole.
Very tough. And it takes a lot of courage to do the right thing sometimes. I mean, I think that's one of the main things going on here.
All right, so I know we're starting to bang up against the wall of time that we've got. So I think we've covered just about everything, and I think we're actually at the point where we took that step back, and we're okay. Now what? So here we are, December 20th. You guys have you've all just seen this in practice, at least at the elementary level, for the last 8 days. I guess, what have you seen that concerns you, moving forward into January 4th, when everybody's coming back, from a high school perspective, what are, where are your worry points for what happens on the 4th? And then I guess what else can we do? Like, and when I say we, I mean, us as the parents, that are kind of trying to make sure you get this voice, that are trying to help how we can. So, I guess, where are we at now, and what more do you need?
I think we've gotten quite a bit of good support, you and your wife. As the teachers are going through it, we've had a lot of meetings. We're trying to think of different ways. I think we're trying to get our story out. We're trying to get our side out, because I think it gets warped when you're talking about, teachers are lazy or they don't want. It's very interesting how we were superheroes in the spring, and now we're the trouble in the fall and in the wintertime. It becomes kind of interesting, but that's the nature of our job. That's just what ends up happening. But we need to get a momentum of people that are thinking clearly. I mean, that are looking at all the situations that are going on and understand that this isn't the best thing for everybody. The other side is very vocal, but I said this before to somebody, You don't call customer service when you don't have a problem. So our people who have the option of being able to go truly and stuff like that, they're not going to call on this. That you're hearing a bunch of angry, but in the percentages of everything, the district will bring up that 70% of the families have picked face-to-face. Well, you know what? A lot of people are picking face-to-face because they're thinking you're doing what it takes to be safe. And that obviously the decision makers have looked into those things and said that, okay, we can do it safely. That's the key word. Can we do it safely? And I think we've proven in the last 8 days at the elementary and at the middle school level that we can't do it safely.
So I just had to ask. I had to ask a question because I happen to have been privy to those numbers that came back from the surveys that went out as I was trying to help people draw up responses and that kind of stuff. And no, I'm going to say that no, 70% of families did not choose face to face. There was a large percentage of that number that was in the either undecided or unsure
Yes.
category. That that because it benefited their argument, they lumped that in with, oh, well, so obviously they're fine with it. So they're go ahead and go, where you could just as easily have gone the other way with it. Because again, the running joke is there are there are lies, there are damn lies, and then there are statistics. That's just how it goes. You could have easily taken that block and said, well, if I recall correctly, because it's been a couple, but I think it would have wound up being 68% that said that they weren't comfortable with face to face. If you would have swung them the other way.
Yeah, I don't nose into the other category.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just that's a really weird thing to me, and I because I hear that number get thrown around a lot, and it always makes me want to throw something through my screen when I hear it.
Yes.
Well, and then the other thing to think about is, I know for me personally that, I have 2 girls in Fraser schools, and one in elementary and one in junior high. And I chose face-to-face for a couple of reasons, because I went back and forth. And one, October 30th numbers are a lot different than they are today.
Correct.
So that is one thing. 2, if we were looking at a year-long commitment, I was thinking, all right, well, maybe in March it'll be a little different, or maybe even, like I said, because the numbers were different, maybe even in February they'll be different, and I can feel a little bit more comfortable. And the third reason is I'm in school every day. So if I'm thinking that, here my kids are going to be protected, only protected so far because I'm in the classroom every day. So there was this delusion I had to, kind of break it from my mind to say, this isn't as safe because I have to be there, and so, my girls do very well in the classroom. They do very well virtually, and I've had to pass them off to, friends and family and things like that just to make it work, like many of us have, but it wasn't an easy decision. And, I decided before the holiday, even though they were due to come back on the 9th, that I was going to keep my kids home, because I just didn't feel like it was the right time. I just didn't feel it was the right time.
Well, and I think you made a very important point there, that when this decision was supposed to be made by families on October 30th, I believe infection rates were about half of what they are now. I mean, we have seen an explosion in Macomb County over the last month and a half, 2 months. So when people made that decision, it is a lot different than where we are now. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of the Facebook groups and that kind of stuff. There were people not sleeping at all and agonizing over which decision they should make on this. And now a lot of people are in that same boat, that, hey, I chose it based on the information at the time. And no, I would like to reevaluate that decision.
Right.
And I think you also have to, the people that make decisions, you have to have some faith that they're going to do the right thing at the right time. And I think that's where we got in trouble in this whole mess.
No, true. And I mean, and I think that's the struggle. I mean, and again, as much as I have said, let's try to keep politics out of this and that kind of stuff. Let's remember that the school board, those are elected positions. They are, they are people with, their own agendas. They get involved for their own reasons. And so that is something to keep in mind, that it's there. I guess, how do you want to wrap this up? Like what haven't we touched on? Because there've been a number of points here that like I said, I mean, the main issue, or I should say the one issue about, well, one of the reasons, all these other districts went back face to face is because they didn't have the option that Fraser had with all the technology and that kind of stuff. That's a point that I don't think people are aware of. I don't think people truly understand that reality.
Yeah. How to wrap this? It's so difficult. I guess we should start by saying we want our kids back at a safe environment no matter what. We love our students. We love the parents' kids. We love being around them. That's why we became teachers. I mean, we didn't become teachers to stare at a computer screen and try to talk, especially when they turn off the cameras. You can't get any react. You make a dumb dad joke and they don't laugh, and you get all, I love that in the classroom. I love I feed off of that with energy to be able to do what I do every day. And I think people just have to understand that we're not here to try, because I keep on hearing these sort of things. We're not trying to escape our responsibilities. As a matter of fact, we're standing up for our responsibilities, caring for our students also. And that's what we're worried about, is being able to do this safely.
And I don't know if this is something that has to be edited out, but one of the questions that Anita and you had put together at the very end was, let me look. I think it was the last question. Let me look. What is the community and staff can be done to fix all of this? That's a big one. And bring a better solution into play. And one of the things that I think, again, and then John, if you want this edited out, that's fine.
Well, that's honestly, so that's what I was trying to rope in with this. How do we wrap things up? Yeah.
That I think moving forward, there's two things. One, I think that I was reading. I just recently got back onto Twitter. Yay! But I haven't tweeted since like 2017 until the other day. But one of the things is they were talking about, and Dave Richards actually said, our former superintendent said, should we consider a gap year? Should we consider this year as a maintenance year, and then give kids the same kids we've had this past year, give them a second chance to say, you know what, we're going to redo. We're going to maintain this year, and we're going to redo, hoping that next year things will be, I hate to say quote unquote normal, but on somewhat of a better schedule, so that those seniors that are having maybe a terrible year can do it over and say, you know what, I want to get a better grade point. I want to see if I can get a better scholarship. So those kindergartners can say, I want to have a classroom that I can play in. I want to have a classroom where I can sit, by this friend this day and this friend the next day, a playground where I can mingle with the kids in the other class, so I think that's something to be considered. Very crazy. I know some people, there's pros and cons to that. But the second thing I would urge us to do is, when it comes to our board, I think moving forward, we need to consider having a teacher advocate on the board, and I don't know what that looks like. If it, maybe it is a former teacher or somebody that can stand specifically for the teachers, because I don't think, I talked about perspective earlier. I don't think, not only is our perspective not heard a lot of the time, but I don't think the realization is there because they don't have somebody on the board saying, whoa, like, I won't say who it was, but everybody knows who it was on the board that said, well, maybe we could, with all the technology, we could have, the teacher on the board or our students on the board, and and then we could have the virtual students on the Promethean board, and then the students face to face, and then the teacher could do both. They're doing that in other districts. Terrible idea, absolutely terrible. That teaching on a screen is hard enough, but then and thank God Laura Woods was there to say, you're literally torturing your virtual students and saying, you just watch the other kids learn. Like, that's what you're going to do.
Right.
You're going to be on the window just looking in, So again, what is right and what is best for our students, that's what we want. So I think, there needs to be somebody on the board to say, teacher perspective right here, this is something we need to think of,
Maybe a dumb question, and I think I'm probably as guilty as a lot of people are of not even really having been aware of the school board, before the past few months have taken place. Is there nobody on the board that's a former teacher?
Not right now. There's not.
I think Debbie Prentice was the last board member that was a teacher, is a teacher.
Laura Edgehill has experience in teaching overseas. I don't know how much she has now, and I know she didn't have any in a public school. But that's about it.
Okay, that doesn't seem like a good idea. I'm just gonna put that out there, that you would think that someone would be.
The unions usually get into elections. We usually screen candidates and support or give our endorsement to candidates. We've never had to do that in Fraser, but it's obvious that we have to now.
So I guess, does anybody else have any thoughts on, how, either the community or how we fix this, how we make it better? Any other thoughts on that before we wrap up? Bueller.
It's tough. It's tough. I think we all like the school board to make sure that instead of just looking at the statewide restrictions or lack thereof, look at home, look at their county numbers, look at what's happening in their own neighborhoods instead of what's happening across the state. What's good for Traverse City, what's good for Marquette isn't always good for Fraser and Clinton Township. And I would like them to keep their eye on that and then make decisions accordingly instead of just using it as a scapegoat. And I think that's what they've done.
I think they need to come to our classrooms and see exactly how this is going.
I agree. We've invited them and they didn't want to.
I think anyone that makes a decision, and any decision maker in our school district, and I know some of them have, but most of them haven't, need to go into those classrooms and actually sit in there for a day, actually be right up there and see exactly what is going on.
That seems perfectly both reasonable and logical to me, which means it'll probably never happen, because that's how these things well, hey, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to get some of the stuff out here. And I guess, I'd make sure I hit one more time. Is there anything any of you want to get out before we wrap this session up? And I guess, for what it's worth, the nice part about this not going out live, if you do feel like, if we shut this session down and you go, oh damn, we forgot about that, I'm more than happy to pull together a one-off or another one, to get whatever else handled as we can. I mean, you guys obviously have some time. I'll make time. We'll make it work. But yeah, I mean, I guess anything else, closing thoughts or anything like that?
No, I think that our only hope is getting our message out. I appreciate what you and Anita have done. We really do appreciate that. I mean, we're really trying to shine a light on exactly what's going on, and you guys are helping quite a bit, and we appreciate your support.
I mean, for what it's worth, just like whatever this whole full 2-hour session is, I'll get that out. I've already thought of probably about maybe 10 or 15 different points. I'm going to try to create a probably going to edit this down to maybe 20, 25 minutes because I want to include it as a segment on our show that we do. Because I mean, you know, putting this out on its own is one thing, but we get a ridiculous amount of listeners, and I know they won't sit there and listen to the whole 2 hours of this, but getting it down to a lot of the key core points, and I'll run it past you that edited down version before I include that in there. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I think will help get some of this stuff out there. And because I don't think the issues, and I guess, you know, the reason why I think that makes sense is I don't believe the issues here in the Fraser School District are isolated. I think a lot of people across, you know, across the country are feeling the same things and seeing the same things and having the same anxieties and dealing with the same BS. And so, yeah, we'll see where that goes from there.
And, I was going to say one more closing thing is, and I keep reminding myself, and maybe it's something, you know, I know Dodie and I talk about it a lot, and my other colleagues, just, you know, this too shall pass. This is not a forever thing, but I think the way we behave and the decisions we make in this time are really going to formulate how we see each other in the future, you know. And so I really hope that, you know, high school, middle school, elementary, you know, union administration, board, I really hope that at the end of this, that we can say, you know what, it started out rocky, you know, but look at where we're at now, you know, and look at what we've built. And those are my hopes. Those are my hopes that the relationships get better, because, you know, I think there's so much good in Fraser. There's so much good in Fraser. And I know that we're all here because we believe that, you know, and I would hate for this to be something that becomes a stain rather than like a victory flag. And I think there's so much opportunity. I know I've learned a lot about technology, learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about resiliency with students, even as young as mine are. And I know that we're capable of so much, even when it's hard. And I hope that that's something that comes out, and I hope it's something that we can be proud of in Fraser again.
That sounds like a hell of a closing point right there.
Makes me sad. Yeah.
Well, no, and yeah, I mean, and I'll, but that's I'm reminded of a conversation that I had with somebody that I worked with probably about 15 years ago, and she said, Dave, I need to know how you don't kill people in meetings. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I can see you. She's like, I watch you in meetings where you're getting very frustrated with somebody, and like I can see the blood pressure coming up your neck and up your face. And she said, and then this weird calm hits your eyes, and you just suddenly take charge of the room and go. And she's like, I need to know how to do that so that I don't kill people because I'm close. And I said, well, it's a little game that I play in my head that said the game is called, well, what made you dumb? Because I truly believe that nobody wants to be that guy or that girl. Like nobody wants to be the one that makes a dumb decision. Nobody wants to be the person that's wrong. Nobody wants to be the obstruction or, you know, or be doing the wrong thing. So the trick is, okay, and I think we've kind of skated around it a lot, but it's that, okay, why are you doing what you're doing? And I think that's kind of the struggle, is like nobody really understands the motivation here. Like, is it somebody that's giving you bad information before you've walked into this room? Are you afraid for your job? Are you just new to this and you don't know any better? Because once you figure that out, and you can kind of extend the branch of, okay, look, I get that you're in this position, I can help you, then they can become your best advocate. And that can vastly improve things. And I think that's the struggle I think that's a lot of the struggle that's going on, is it's a lot of this, because it's like nobody really understands what the motivations are, because they're not, you know, to your point, it doesn't appear to be curriculum based. It doesn't appear to be, you know, for the social or mental well-being of the kids based. So, well, what is it? And how do we figure that out? And then how do we try to satisfy some of you. Because I mean, at the end of any good negotiation, from a union perspective, nobody's happy. Nobody's 100% happy when they walk out of a room after a negotiation. And both sides should feel like they got a little something, and both sides should feel like they got a little screwed. So it's just a matter of figuring out where that medium is, but you can't even start to do that until you understand those motivations, I think.
Seek first to understand.
Yeah.
That's right.
Great point.
All right, well, cool. Unfortunately, I have to get out of I'm sitting here in like gym shorts. I gotta throw jeans on and run down to our downtown studio to run a show. But no, so I appreciate the time. This was, like I said, this was educational for me. Like I said, I didn't understand. Like, I've heard those same arguments about other school districts doing this, and why not Fraser? So yeah, interesting. And then I will let this run through its conversion process. So it probably won't be until I get back home tonight. I can shoot you a Dropbox link so you can give it a listen. I'll run it through our post prod so that it cleans up everybody's voices and all that fun stuff. Everybody sounds good. And we'll go from there.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
All right. Talk with you guys soon.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.